Welcome to Take the Lead Radio with Dr. Diane Hamilton, where she interviews some of the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, and other individuals who will inspire you to take the lead in your career and personal life. And now, here is Dr. Diane Hamilton.
Welcome to Take the Lead Radio. This is Dr. Diane Hamilton, and we've got a great show today. We have Matt Abrahams, Bob Dougherty, and Dr. Wendy Berlavi. Matt Abrahams is the guy that's going to help you learn how to speak without freaking out, and he lectures at Stanford. He's a really interesting guy. And Bob Dougherty is the executive dean at the Forbes School of Business and Technology, and along with Dr. Wendy Berlavi, who's a performance coach for the Chicago Bulls, they're looking at personal mastery and decision-making in leadership and in sports. So we're going to talk to them about that, and we're going to do that right after this.
Attend any corporate summit, and it's likely someone will bring up issues with millennials or other generational conflict. In the book, It's Not You, It's Your Personality, the authors explore the post-boomer generations and how to use personality assessments to get along in the modern workplace. Learn what makes the younger workforce unique. Filled with tips, tricks, and techniques, It's Not You, It's Your Personality outlines various scenarios with different personalities to give you a more detailed look at how different people can more effectively work together, both in team situations and when various activities require them to better understand one another. You'll learn how to recognize character traits in others as well as in yourself, and what to do about the traits that need help. Entertaining as well as educational, It's Not You, It's Your Personality makes understanding personality assessment essential to workplace success. To get your copy, text the word Diane, D-I-A-N-E, to 38470. That's Diane, D-I-A-N-E, at 38470.
I am here with Matt Abrahams, who's the co-founder and principal of Bold Echo. Matt is a dedicated collaborative coach who is a former senior leader in learning and development at several software companies. Matt understands the importance of continuing education, especially around communication skills, to help employees at all levels of an organization succeed. In service to this goal, Matt published Speaking Up Without Freaking Out, a book written to help people present and communicate in a more confident manner. In addition, Matt also lectures at Stanford University's Graduate School of Business, where he teaches strategic communication and effective virtual presenting. And he also has a pretty amazing TEDx talk I watched, and, and I'm looking forward to talking to you, Matt. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you, Diane?
Well, I am doing great as well. And you and I kind of know each other because we serve as board of advisors, right, for a company called LeaderKid Academy, which is pretty amazing, huh?
It is, absolutely, and it's been a lot of fun to see what they do and to try to help them do that, and it's been great to get to know you through that.
Well, it is a great thing that Rishi and Preeti Dixit do, and I think we have a lot of things in common based on that. We've talked before, and I'm fascinated by your virtual communications and all the things that you do. Now, you have this course that you teach at Stanford, which is got to be rough having to go to Stanford every day. I feel really sorry for you.
There could be worse things for sure.
It's like the most beautiful campus at Palo Alto. Is like gorgeous. I love it up there. But how long have you been doing that?
So I've been at the business school for about 7 years now, but I've been affiliated with Stanford in different capacities for a number of years. And you're right, I am a bit spoiled. It's a gorgeous campus with really wonderful people doing really, really good, important work.
Well, what you're doing is interesting because so many people have difficulty with communication and speaking. And I love the freaking out part because people do freak out, right?
Absolutely. Consistently, the fear of public speaking is rated as one of the top fears in lots of different studies that have looked at it. And anything I can do to help people feel more comfortable and confident is really important to me.
Well, it's funny because when I was at ASU 100 years ago, taking my first business courses, they made almost every course they made you give a talk, and I can remember just thinking, I'm going to pass out every time you got up there, right? And when you're young,
right.
Yeah.
I've never lost a student yet. Nobody's gone down, even though people feel that way. So we get them through it.
I never went down, but you think about when you're really at that age. I don't know if kids are much more used to being, on you know, you have FaceTime and things where people see you in front of other people a lot more. But that's a tough age for getting up and really presenting. And so I loved your TEDx talk. I love your first line of how you started your talk with "People hate me," and and why would they hate you?
So in that talk, I start by saying that one of the skills or one of the tools that professors have is the ability to cold call on people.
Mm-hmm.
And if your listeners aren't familiar or remember what a cold call is, that's where you just point at somebody and ask a question or ask them to respond to something you say. And while I am not a big fan of that and I never use it, I start the talk that way to help people appreciate how being put on the spot in the moment can be very challenging and anxiety provoking. And so my whole talk is designed to give tools to people to handle those situations where, be it planned or spontaneous, they have to respond and their anxiety perhaps gets in the way.
Well, introverts particularly love to be cold call. That's like the worst thing you could do to an introvert, isn't it?
Sure. Well, I think it's pretty much the worst thing you can do to anybody in a classroom. But yes, introverts and those who are shy very much struggle with that.
Well, you talked about a lot of struggles in your TED Talk, and I love the toothpaste thing. And I'm a squeezer, and my husband's a roller, so I'm on your team, I guess, the squeezer team. But
so if your listeners aren't familiar with that, so the biggest fight my wife and I have ever had, and we've been married almost 20 years now, is over toothpaste. And I am a squeezer and she is a roller. And if your listeners appreciate that difference, you can understand the difficulty. But I use that story really to talk about how you have to get to the underlying causes of things. The fight we were having was not over toothpaste. It was really over respect and how each other does things. And when I talk about anxiety management, I talk about having to manage the symptoms, but also the sources. And if you don't get to the sources, you can only mask enough symptoms. Others will always creep up. So that story usually gets a chuckle. It's definitely a true story, but it really leads to a discussion of a deeper understanding of what's going on with the anxiety we feel around speaking.
Well, okay, so how do we manage that anxiety?
How long do you have? Right. No, so I'll give you the short answer is, first and foremost, it's something you can manage. And I don't believe it's something you can ever truly overcome. I do think it is something you can manage. And I don't think we ever would want to overcome our anxiety around speaking. It actually gives us energy. It helps us focus. But in order to manage it, you need to take a two-pronged approach. And as I mentioned, you have to deal with the symptoms. So it's the perspiration, it's the shaky hands, but we also have to deal with the sources. What is actually motivating the anxiety? And there are a few primary motivations or sources. And if you take that two-pronged approach, you can actually begin to feel less anxious and as if you're on a path where you can control how you respond to that anxiety. And that's really the ultimate goal.
Well, you gave some great tips in your talk, I thought, about how to be prepared for. I mean, I think some of the anxiety comes about from just feeling like you don't know what you really need to say, or you just haven't. Some people want to memorize things, and how bad is it to memorize? And I have bad memory, but so that doesn't work really well for me.
So do I, and it's getting worse as I get older.
It does.
So the problem with memorization, and it's very tempting, but the problem with memorization is twofold. First, you create for yourself the right way to say it by having the script. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on yourself to say it that right way.
Right.
So you're actually adding to your anxiety. Second, it serves as a barrier from you and your audience. So you lose connection. You are speaking to your audience through your script, and that barrier prevents you from being able to connect. And the speakers we find most engaging, most compelling are those who in the moment are really connecting to us. So I strongly encourage people not to script out word for word what they say. I am a big proponent of outlines where you write down key ideas and phrases that you'd like to say. Better still, instead of having declarative sentences in your outline, I am a huge proponent of what I call a question-based outline. So on the outline, rather than having bullet points of keywords or phrases, you actually list questions that you will answer for your audience. And what's so powerful about this, I believe, is if I am simply answering your unasked questions, I am in conversation and dialogue with you. I am not simply reciting. So outlines, I believe, are really powerful. And if you can make those outlines question-based, they have a tremendous benefit to the way in which you connect.
Well, so now I'm curious. Did you have a script for your TED Talk? Because everybody like has really structured things they tell you to do with the TED Talks, you know?
Yeah, so I've coached a number of TED speakers and TEDx speakers, and it was a privilege to get to do one myself. I had an outline, and my outline was question based, as I discussed. So if you listen to the talk or other talks I've given, you can almost think to yourself, what question is he answering at this point? And that's exactly what I was doing. And the other thing I like about question based outlines is the questions themselves can become transitions as you move from one point to the next. So you'll hear in that talk in particular, there are a couple points where I'll ask a question to bridge from one point to my next point. And that's actually, if you look at my outline, the very question that's on it.
Well, so how did that affect your timing, though? You know what I mean?
Sure. So absolutely. So when you have an outline, you still have to practice and you still have to get very comfortable with the timing. And as you know, and many of your listeners probably know, TED is very strict on their timing.
Right.
So you practice with the timing. And what I do is I make sure when I prepare a speech that I know where I need to be timing wise at certain points. So I'm never playing catch up. I'm never looking up and saying, oh, there are 2 minutes left and I have 10 minutes more content. I know at 3 minutes where I need to be in the talk. I know at 6 minutes where I need to be in the talk. So I can make micro adjustments rather than major adjustments at the end. And in fact, there's some really cool apps, presentation timer apps, that will vibrate at certain timings. So you can actually be giving the speech with a timer in your back pocket, and it will help you know where you are time-wise relative to your content. So that's all what I recommend people do when they have strict timings on their presentations.
For men that wear pants. For women, it's tough.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. But often in big keynote presentations, they will have a timer next to a confidence monitor that you can see.
Well, you know what I found kind of challenging is that, you know, I mean, I've had a lot of Hall of Fame speakers on my show. I mean, a lot.
Sure.
But you know, they give the same talk, and they're so used to giving it that it's no big deal. But like, I go back to my college days, I had to give a talk on why the Korean won devalued or some horrible thing, you know, and the stress of that. Sometimes we have to give talks about stuff like one time that we'll never have to give again. Isn't that the worst thing? I mean, how hard is that?
So if the topic isn't something you're familiar with, or you know it's a one-hit wonder for you, it can add extra pressure. But simultaneously, it could actually be a bit easier because you know that you're not going to have to do it again, or you know that you can take some risks or do some experimenting in it because there won't be a follow-on. So in any case, whenever it's a high stakes presentation and anxiety comes up, what I really encourage people to do is, one, focus on managing the anxiety itself, symptoms and sources, but also spend time really thinking about how you're planning your talk. I recommend to the students I teach and the folks I coach a process of creating talks. And once you can deploy that process, it doesn't matter if it's for a talk you'll repeat several times or just a one-hit wonder. That process can help you feel more comfortable in the preparation as well as in the delivery.
All right, now, are those 4 areas: approach, audience, context, and structure, or is that something different?
You got it.
Oh, talk
That's
about that.
Exactly right.
That. Can you go over those?
You're a great student. You remember.
Thank you.
So
I cheated. I wrote it down.
Oh, great. So to me, we always have to start with our audience in mind. An effective communicator, a compelling, engaging communicator, is one who is audience centric. So the very first thing you have to do is really think about, who is my audience? What is it they need from me? It's not what is it I as a communicator want to say, it's what does my audience need to hear. So I have to do reflection and reconnaissance on my audience. That might mean I'm searching LinkedIn to understand their histories, might mean I'm surveilling their company website to get an idea of their attitudes, who they tend to partner with, etc. After I do that, I have to think about the context in which I'm speaking. As you mentioned when you introduced me, sometimes we're speaking virtually where the audience isn't in front of us. It's via a webinar or a teleconference. Other times it's in a room crowded with people, and that influences what I say and how I say it. And from there, once I know about my audience and my context, I then create a speaking goal, and that speaking goal has three parts. At the end of what I'm saying, what do I want my audience to know? What is it I want them to feel? And what is it I want them to do? So it's about information, emotion, and action. And that goal then serves as the North Star for everything I navigate the rest of my presentation through. And the last thing that leads to is a structure, a framework. We don't just speak randomly. We don't just speak in bullet points. We put a structure that is a logical narrative from beginning to end that fulfills the speaking goal, which came from my audience and my context. So those four elements that you so accurately captured in your notes are, I think, critical to effective communication. And I don't care if it's an email, a keynote address, a meeting, that process will really make your communication more focused, sound more confident, and be more connected and compelling.
Well, I like how you say structure sets expectations. And can you just share your MacGyver of all structures that you say?
Yes.
Okay.
So I believe that there are two foundational skills that everybody in business needs to have. One is the ability to paraphrase. Paraphrasing is an amazing tool that can help you get out of really sticky situations. Second is the MacGyver structure. So this is and I call it MacGyver because it can be used in so many different ways to help you with so many tricky situations. And the structure is quite simple. It's called what, so what, now what. And in this structure, you start by talking about what it is you're discussing. It could be a new product, could be a process. It even could be a person you're introducing. You then explain, so what? Why is that product, process, person important? And then the now what is, what do you want the person to do with the information you've given them? Do you want them to buy the product, implement the process, applaud for the person as they walk up on stage? So it is just an incredibly useful structure that once you train yourself to use it, helps you be more concise. It helps what you're saying flow. Having that structure helps your audience remember. In fact, I am describing this process, what, so what, now what, using what, so what, now what. So I didn't mean to get meta on you in this conversation, but it is so useful in explaining things. So that to me, along with paraphrasing, are the two foundational skills people need to survive difficult situations in the workplace.
You know, I need to play this in all my classes because I don't let students do direct quotes. I make them paraphrase because you can't tell,
Yes.
you know, that's how you learn. You can show you've digested content. Otherwise, you're just repeating exactly what somebody else has said, right?
Right. And the cool thing about paraphrasing is that it's a polite way to move things forward. So if you're in the midst of a conversation or running a meeting, let's say, and somebody's dominating the meeting, and what you really need to do is say, hey, shut up, we need to get moving. That's not going to be good for your career or your relationship with the people in the room. But what you can do is you can say, hey, Diane, that point you just made about X is really important. Let's see how that applies to Y. And what I've just done is politely taken the floor away from you. I've acknowledged your contribution. I've moved it forward, gotten us back on track. And nobody feels as if you've been rude or dominating. So a paraphrase can be really useful.
Well, this is all fascinating because I think it's so helpful to so many people. And I could see how having this, you know, the 4 tips and techniques that you mentioned to help you with structure and all that, to give you confidence. But how do you make your talk compelling? I mean, what's the best way to make it compelling?
First and foremost is to start by saying, I really do want to get my audience engaged. A lot of people, when I ask my students or when I ask the people I coach, what's the goal of your presentation or meeting? The most common answer I get is to get through it. Like that's not a satisfactory answer.
That's great.
Part of what you should be answering that question with is, I want people engaged. I want them thinking about what I'm saying. I want them motivated to act. So if those are your goals, that compelling outcome, then there are things you need to do to build into your meetings and presentations, ways of doing that. You need to invite people in. I can't tell you the number of speakers I hear who start by saying, I want this to be interactive and engaging, and then they talk at their audience for 30 minutes or an hour without giving them any opportunity. I had a boss once who said, Matt, my door is always open. Come in and I'm there to help you. And he was right. His door was always open, but he was never in the office. And so we make these false promises. So how do you be engaging? A few things you can do. One is invite physical participation. Take a poll where people are raising their hands. If you're virtual, have people type something into a chat, or go to a shared document like a Google Doc and have them write something in it. It could be turn to the person next to you and share how this can be implemented in your team, or how you can apply this in your life. Get them physically doing something. If it's a meeting you're running, on the agenda, start the meeting with 2 questions. So you send the agenda out in advance, write 2 questions you want people to come with answers to the meeting. So you immediately start with that. So one way to get engagement is to give people opportunities to physically do something. Another way is to get them mentally involved, using words like picture this, what if, imagine, think back to when. When I use language like that, we know from cognitive neuroscience, your brain thinks and acts differently. When I use words like imagine or what if, think back to when, picture this, the areas of your brain associated with attention and retention are activated in a very different way than if I just read bullet points off of a slide. So another way to get people engaged is linguistically using terms that pull people in.
Yeah, those are all great tips. And, I know that I try to incorporate games. I do it Family Feud type thing sometimes.
Right.
And it makes it more fun. And I think it can be, it's fun to watch what other people do. But sometimes I think you look at other people and you go, well, that's great. That really motivates me. But I can't be like a preacher on stage and act over the top, or whatever it is that makes them be dynamic. You know what I mean? Do we all have to be like super loud and all over, walking around and all that to be a good speaker?
Absolutely not. So my whole goal is to help people be authentic and true to themselves and find the tools that work for them. Fundamentally, what I'm about is helping people find tools that work for them so they can make conscious choice to use them or not. Most of us communicate out of habit. We do what is habitual and not purposeful. So giving people lots of tools and then helping them figure out what choices to make is what I'm all about. You need not be an extreme extrovert who is just oozing passion as they are up on stage. In fact, some of the most effective speakers are very thoughtful and introverted. You have to find the tools that work for you. Given that, though, the foundational principles you need to follow are simple and similar regardless. You need to appear confident. You need to act in a way that is connected with your audience, make the content relevant for them. And then finally, invite them in. So you don't have to be playing Family Feud. You could simply ask a rhetorical question. You could tell a story that's very vivid that draws people in. So you absolutely don't have to be bouncing around the stage, loudly emoting to be effective. But you do need to apply these fundamental principles with some conscious choice to it.
Well, you mentioned introverts and all that. I saw Susan Cain speak, who wrote Quiet, a classic introvert, and she, the whole book's about that. She was great. I mean, it was very compelling, and I think that's really important. And I wonder, I think that's a great resource for maybe introverts who want to see more about what they can provide. But what other resources do you think people can look at for just how to improve their communication? Do you have like a suggested list or anything like that?
I do. I have. There are lots of things that I recommend to people. So I personally curate a website called nofreakingspeaking.com that has some information that I've written, but also information others have. So No Freaking Speaking is a great place to go to get some additional resources. There are some really useful books that I suggest people check out. One that I really love, it's a bit old now. It's called Made to Stick. It's a book by Diane and Chip Heath. Chip Heath actually teaches at Stanford's Business School with me. Really useful book on how to really be compelling and engaging in your communication. For those who are in need of just feeling more in the moment and really confronting their barriers that get in the way of effective communication, there's a great book called Improv Wisdom. It applies improvisation skills to life. It's by Patricia Ryan Madsen, and it's a wonderful book. And so those two books are go-to books that I refer people to. I'd like to hope that the book I wrote, Speaking Up Without Freaking Out, can help people too.
Definitely.
But those are those are places people can start. And then I encourage people to look for courses and coaches in their area that can help them. You're not alone when you want to become a better communicator. There are courses, there are coaches, there's even Toastmasters as an organization that can really help people begin to develop these skills.
Well, what can you tell me more about Bold Echo? Because I mentioned your association
Sure,
with that.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to know more.
Thank you. So Bold Echo is the consulting practice that I and my co-founder founded. We're both academics by nature, and we are what I call reluctant consultants. Our students, after graduating our courses, would go out and they would invite us into their companies, into their organizations to help them. And from that, we created Bold Echo. And Bold Echo is really designed to help organizations and individuals within organizations deal with high stakes communication situations, be it running meetings, giving keynote addresses, speaking at South by Southwest or CES, the TED Talks even, to really help people hone their individual skills, leveraging many of the things you and I have talked about today.
Well, speaking of inviting, thank you again for inviting me out to Stanford. I'm really looking forward to joining
We
you
would
on your
love to have
classes.
you in our courses.
That is
Absolutely.
going to be so much fun. That's got to be rough. I'm sure I'm going to suffer through that. But I had just one last question, though. I want to know, what advice would you give somebody who wants to do a TEDx talk? Because I have a lot of people that probably listen who would like to do that. Do you have any advice for them?
So first and foremost, figure out what your message is. What is it that you want to bring to the table? And then think about, how can I communicate that message in a way that will be useful and compelling to people? And then it's about making relationships and socializing that message to make sure it really resonates. And then when you get on the stage, have fun. A lot of people put themselves under so much pressure. The opportunity to give a TED Talk or a TEDx talk or talks like that is really exciting and fun. And that's what motivates a lot of us to do it. But when we actually get close to the event or on that red dot, that red circle, we end up really putting a lot of stress on ourselves. So fundamentally have a very powerful, motivating idea, and then enjoy doing it. It's a great opportunity.
Do you think it's a good idea to have a talk that's contrary to popular opinion, kind of a overall message?
I don't think so. Now, of course, I'm biased because mine aren't that way.
Yeah.
I think something that you're passionate about is more important. Something that gets people thinking or provides people with tools that they can use. I think that's most powerful. If you really reflect on the talks that we all like, some are challenging common ideas, but some are just in line with what we think and just give us different ways of approaching life or having aha moments. So I don't think it always has to be contrary. Again, that puts a lot of pressure on us.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really about finding your passion and then making sure that it will resonate with others and then having fun while you do it.
Well, that's great advice. And I know we mentioned a couple of your sites earlier, but can you share again how people can reach you and find out more?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, Bold Echo, BOLDECHO.com is a great place to go. We have some resources there, but if you're interested in coaching, happy to help. And then for resources on more confident, compelling, and connected presenting, check out nofreakingspeaking.com. You'll find some of my stuff as well as stuff from other people, some of whom have been on your show before, Diane, to really help people feel more comfortable and confident presenting.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Matt. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. That'll be fun.
Absolutely. We look forward to having you here too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And